a family life, great if that's what you want. You want to try to, have both. That's great. Like, you just need to know what you want and why you want it. Yeah. That's more important, I think. Yeah. And then just go after it. Whether it doesn't matter whether it's backed by data, emotions, or logic. None of them is, lesser or greater than any of it. It's just they need to exist in sort of symphony. That's when you really are yourself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast Real Talk with Sudhanya. And I'm your host, Sudhanya. In this podcast, we meet people who are dreamers, go-getters, achievers. They have a bigger purpose in life. And sometimes they have strange and funny ways to deal and grow with their challenges, just like my today's guest. My today's guest is Archana Wuntakal. Her philosophy in life is I am because we are, the Ubuntu philosophy. She applies this philosophy while leading, coaching, and collaborating with people around her. Her strong belief in the interconnectedness of humanity has led her to her why, to motivate people and to have a positive impact on people's lives. Whether it's her role as a technology leader or her hobby of stand-up comedy, she wants to move people with emotions and motivate people to work towards a better world for all of us by bringing technology and people together. She truly believes that we rise by lifting others and is active in giving back to her tech community. She has worked with nonprofit organizations and corporate initiatives for social impact to coach young professionals in tech. She's a champion of women's rights and wants to make the world of tech a thriving place for individuals irrespective of their gender, background, ability, or age. She's also the co-author of Ready for Female Leadership. The future is now. I had this big privilege to talk to her, have fun, and to be inspired. So, join me in this amazing conversation with Archana. Have fun. For our audience, we both are in Netherlands. Another fact is that we both are from India. Archana is from south of India and I am from east of India in Bengal, but we both love Bollywood.
We do. We do.
Yes. Like we appreciate each other a lot on our reel. Like maybe later today we can do some TikTok for like Bollywood songs.
We should. That would be a good way to wind down for the day.
Yeah. Because today we are going to have some Bollywood talk, so like TikTok is mandatory. So, and also we both are into tech, and which also inspired me to read your book, which is called, which you have co-authored as one of the, I think, 28 essays.
Right.
And it's called Ready for Female Leadership, which is a fantastic topic I love. The future is now. That's the name of the book. And there you spoke about women in tech, about leadership, about mentoring. And I was reading today in the morning once more to get a bit prepped for today's talk. I was so inspired and I could so much relate to some of the points that you mentioned, back in India, it's so common to have a lot of women in technology, but not here in Europe or in the Netherlands. And that was a big shock for you. And then how it was quite tough for you to find your path. And hey, today you see you are a technology strategist at the moment with Microsoft. And yeah, you have a brilliant career. And I so enjoyed reading your book and words of inspiration. There are other beautiful, I would say, talents of this lady, which we'll go a bit later. But let's start with something that is super fun about this essay. And you wrote as a final note that if not you, then who? So let's start with that.
Right. Do you want to know why the essay is titled that way, or where did it come from, the thought?
Whatever you want to share about it.
Okay. Well, this was actually a speech that I wrote. It had a more motivational angle to it. But the quote itself is mine, and it really comes from my heart because it's also something that I tell myself when I look into the mirror, especially when I'm struggling, with hard times, because it's so easy for each of us to ask, why me? Why did this happen to me? I'm sure we all have been through that phase. And I still do sometimes, but I've also kind of trained my mind to ask myself, if not you, then who? Right. It has sort of two layers to it. One is, of course, when I'm struggling especially with self-pity, this question serves me well. If not you, then who? Because you have all the ability in this world to solve this problem or to really tackle this challenge head on. That's the one angle. And the other one is, of course, when I'm struggling with imposter syndrome. If I'm ever if I have an opportunity that I'm excited about, my mind immediately tells me, my brain, it's more like, hey, are you sure this is for you? Are you sure you're probably just a diversity candidate for this? Or, I'm sure a lot of us, especially women, I know men too, and a lot of us can relate to these questions, right? So that's also one of the answers that I have. If not you, then who? Because all the experiences that I have had in my life make me truly unique and the best candidate to either have this opportunity or to deal with this challenge. So that's where this question comes from, and it has served me well. And I now, through this book, I want to offer it to a larger audience and hopefully motivate them, to pick a career in technology, and to also tell them that, your experience makes you truly unique, and that's why you need to be in tech, because technology belongs to us all. So that's how I start and end my essay in this book.
Yeah, and indeed, like what you mentioned, that very less women are in tech, and one of the reasons is the imposter syndrome, that who am I? I'm not this nerd. I don't know coding. Right. I don't have interest. It doesn't interest me. Why? And it is such a layered question because it's also a societal thing that women shouldn't be in this into technology stuff, but we all use it. The future is technology. The current situation, everything is digital. The whole how we handle pandemic, digital plays such a big role. Technology played such a big role, and since we are the 50% of the consumers, we need to be. So, a great message, Archana. I really loved it. But I can also sense that there is a deeper meaning in it as well. Because you inspire people in career in technology, but you mentioned about the self-pities, imposter syndrome. Apart from your technical endeavors or your career endeavors, where all do you face this?
Yeah, this is, of course, a very human question, right? I mean, it's challenges not just in technology, whether I want to learn a certain thing or whether I want to get a promotion. It's not just limited to that. It's limited to, it goes beyond that. It's also in general in life when I have faced some challenges. I have witnessed domestic abuse, alcohol abuse in my family, and I'm also a survivor of sexual abuse. So I never had a very safe childhood. Safety was a big thing that was missing from my childhood, and that shapes a lot of the things that I want to do in my life. So if I really look back at it, there have been so many times when I've looked into the mirror and asked myself, why me? Why am I in this situation? Why do I have to be born here, in this particular setup and things like that? For a long time, I've asked this question to myself. And for a long time, I've struggled with self-pity. And I still do sometimes. But yeah, I've also, like I said, been trying to train my brain to put a another spin on it. I wouldn't necessarily say a positive spin. I don't want to go down that track with talking about positivity all the time, but I really just want to talk about what works for me. It is to ask myself also, if not you, then who? Because it just really makes me reflect on how far I've come and how I've dealt with other challenges. It just gives me more confidence and faith in myself. And that's also the reason behind this question. It also comes from a place of struggle, place of self-pity, and place of lack of safety that I really missed, during my growing years.
Well, and that's what I hear from you now, and also in the book I could sense it, that there is much more like a deeper reason for you to be so driven and also successful, and also bringing the whole why in your life, to bring the positive change in your life. And indeed, you don't always talk about fluffy positive talk. Indeed, the reason, the intention is to bring positivity, but it is through the deep knowing. And I'm amazed. I wanted to pick on this topic a bit later, but you already mentioned about the right on the direct real talk that about your childhood and the things that you went through. So can you share something a bit more about your childhood?
Yeah, let me think. So like I said, safety was an element that was missing in my childhood through whatever experiences I had. And that has shaped a lot of things for me as an adult now. And also, for example, what I strive to create around me is that I can make whichever place or environment I am in a safe one for not just me, but also whether it's my colleagues or my friends or basically my counterparts, anyone. So this is what I do, because I have really missed it, and I know how I can creating this is so important, for us to work as a group, any group, whether it's at workplace or at home or just in your social life. So this is how it has shaped. And just reflecting back on my childhood, and it has been a struggle. I'm just thinking, did you have any other specific question on that?
How does unsafety feel like?
Oh, wow.
I know that.
Wow, yeah, that's a deep question. Yeah, it's a very good question, though. Yeah. How does being unsafe feel like? Being unsafe is, well, it's terrible, of course. It's also something where you're constantly thinking, what's next? What's going to happen next? And you're always thinking about the next phase and what's going to happen next. Will it lead into something else? Will it make somebody more angry? You're always thinking about what's going to happen next, and always thinking about people around you, how they might react, or what they might do to you or someone else. So this is very, very energy depriving, even especially so as a child. You don't want to be thinking about all this. As a child, you should be, just worry about your homework, worry about your school stuff, and just play. These are the things that should be at the top of the mind for a child. But when you come from an unsafe background, these are the questions which take the front seat, and this front seat in your brain, and this really changes the way you think and the way you grow as an adult. And it's so easy to repeat this cycle. It's so easy to give in to this and to also repeat this cycle. And I understand why it is easy, why some people still sort of continue to do that, to repeat the cycle. And I feel that I have sort of been put onto this earth to really break this pattern. This is my why. This is why I've been put here, to, in whatever capacity I can, to the best of my ability, to break this cycle. And this is how it has shaped me. This is what I try to do at workplace, in my social circle. And more importantly, now that I'm a young mother, that I have a young son. I don't know if I'm a young mother, but I have a young son. So this is all the more important for me, to really look at and learn about gentle parenting, how it should be. How do you create a safe environment where your child can thrive? And I think in a lot of ways, this has made me a better person, and also a better individual at workplace, because I can really empathize a lot more with people now. And always think about, how do I make this a safer environment for everyone? How do I make this an environment where people can thrive? This is the question that I ask myself as a leader as well. And so this Amazing. Is how it has impacted
Amazing. Like I can feel the energy right now, the vibe, and how much driven and dedicated and purposeful you are, and everything has a reason. So thank you so much for sharing and bringing it in the table. That's what I read also in your book. Like, let's bring it to the lunch table. Um, you mentioned about like things like sexual abuse, uh, or like dysfunctional family. I'm not yet a parent, but I can imagine every parent in the world would want to give their children the best they can. They want to make their children feel safe, offer them education, affection. Like, I can't imagine that nobody wouldn't want it, but still, these things happen. And it has happened in my life also. Like, my mother, she suffers from bipolar, and when she went through her second pregnancy, for example, after that it went downward, and life happens, right? And then you go through this whole tough situation as a child. But now growing up, I knew that like she never intended to make our lives difficult, or like whatever happened between my parents fighting or whatever, it was not an intention to make my life tough. But still I felt extremely unsafe. So I totally relate with what you're saying. What does unsafe feel like? And that constant people pleasing attitude, and this constant like you don't look into yourself. Every generation has to step up and become a bit more conscious around it. But like, what do you think might be the reason, like from our and this is something that I'm hearing like just from our previous generation, like our parents. Like, it's very stunning that we both had different kind of challenges but still dysfunctional childhoods, and we both come, like, we are so driven also because of that feeling of unsafety. Like, being a new parent now, why do you think that happened, like with our previous generation?
Right. It's a very broad question, of course. But Sudhanya, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I know I've known it before. You've shared it with me, but I just think that you're very brave for sharing this. And I think we need more people like you who can talk about it, and also talk about talk about making mental health, a part of our conversation. I think it needs to be in our mainstream conversation. So you're definitely, somebody who's leading the path there. So, and I'm in awe of you for that. So thank you for sharing that. And then if I really look back, your question is around, what really made our previous generation, also, given that we share similar backgrounds, of course, it would be hard for us to know how parents are here in this part of the world. But if I have to reflect back on our culture and that similar thread that we share, I think one, of course, it could be that our previous generation, well, not exactly previous, but more like the baby boomer generation or boomer generation, they had different concerns. They had to think more about finance than we had to, like family finances. They were probably a little bit restricted on that end. And of course, if you talk about mental health or alcohol abuse or how addiction runs in the family, I doubt even if there were data back then, that could support this kind of, or could shine some light on what is happening. Even if it were there, it was probably just in the circles of the doctors or the psychologists. And of course, internet was absent then, right? And at least, in normal life. So that means that the message did not get out as often as it does now. Now, even though there are still a lot of people who deny it, it is still a part of the conversation. People have different opinions about it. That's fine. But it is a part of the conversation now to talk about mental health or how addiction runs in the family. What happens? How do you break the cycle of domestic abuse or, even sexual abuse, any kind of abuse? And, I think internet, of course, has a very big part to play in this. that people are ready to talk about it, and not everybody shies away from it anymore. We still have a long way to go. I think the fact that there is research, there is data, and there is internet has really made a difference.
The difference in our generation,
right?
In the sense, like, and that's where also, like, see, technology is helping us
Right.
to get over that. Because I remember as a kid, it's such a big taboo to have psychiatric trouble in your family. Like, it's like as like normal as like breaking your leg. Like, anybody
It
can,
should be, yeah.
But like back then it was like a huge taboo, and somehow nobody, like, I don't think so, nobody told me specifically that, hey, don't share it. But I remember I was up till 18 or 19 years old that nobody, not even my closest friend in my school, knew about my whole personal family situation. And I can imagine that, like, that there are so many families where, like, these kind of situations happen, like domestic abuse or like any kind of dysfunction, and there is no proper social support system to help, to even help our parents. They are also going through all of this for the first time as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, social support is very important. I think that's a very good point you made, because the thing is, you need to rely on your support. And when you also need to constantly observe yourself as a parent. That's why being a parent is very hard work, in my opinion, because you need to sometimes literally lift yourself out of your body and observe you interacting with your child. Now, if you're bogged down with your own problems, and if you think that a child is somebody who needs to be fed, bathed, and put to bed, you don't have time to look at other things that impact the growth of a child. Now, if you think, of course, I'm not saying feeding and bathing a child is very, very difficult. Trust me, it takes me about 2 hours a day. So, of course, that's difficult. That's physical hard work. I'm not denying that. But you also need to have the mental space for yourself as a parent to literally kind of lift yourself out of your body and look at, hey, this is what I did today. Maybe I could do this better. And it's even better if you do it right there in that situation, because you need to think long term when you are interacting with a child, especially in the growing years when they're throwing tantrums or asking for something, or they're angry with something. You need to really deal with them, look at them as a person. So first you need to empathize with them, and then you need to think long run that their brain is probably not capable of handling the situation. So you are the adult there, and you need that a space to kind of lift yourself out of your body and look at it as a situation. Am I telling the right things? It's very difficult, and it's not possible all the time. But social support is very important there, because when you have others to rely on, then you have some space for yourself, for your self-care, and then you have some space to really look at how you're interacting with your child.
Right.
But if you're truly bogged down and really, kind of circled within your own problems, and you don't have a way to break it and to think outside of it, this becomes difficult. And that's why social support is important, especially if you're dealing with mental health issues as a parent.
Yeah, very wise advice, I think. And I'm just like, right now, that makes me very curious that how did you reach this mindset, like from your childhood, like if we can go a bit backtrack, and if you can share a bit about like what really happened, like you spoke about sexual abuse, and from there also, like, what made you bring till here with this kind of mindset?
Yeah, so the thing is, sexual abuse thing happened when I was really young, like around 6 or 7 years. I don't even remember properly, but there was more than one instance. So for a long time, repeatedly for many years, I felt unsafe. And then even through my growing years in my teens, I never felt safe because of the environment, which I'm sure you can relate to, that was persistent back there, in India. And of course, now things have changed. I think things are much better now, but still women are unsafe. and again, I want to say that it's not a problem that is focused only on India. It is true for the rest of the world. Women do feel unsafe in different capacities. But I mean, that's the fact.
You
that
mean
is something
going in the street
in the
and
catcalling,
catcalling.
or somebody touching you inappropriately. It's just so I somehow, some way or the other, I've always kind of found myself in those situations. And I've always wondered, like, why me? Like, am I doing something? Am I, sort of attracting these perpetrators towards me? Like, why me? And, I really asked myself that for about, I think, 20 or 21 years of my life. And then that is when, and then I always told myself that, no, let me just focus on getting myself out of this situation. I really just wanted to go away from home to really find myself, understand myself, because I felt like growing up there was a lot of noise around me, and also a lot of noise in my brain, because my brain was trained to think, what's next? How do you make sure that you don't make somebody angry? How do you make sure that you please your parents? How do you make sure that you please everybody around you? It's also because of the culture and the environment that I grew up in. It was just too much of noise in my head. Of course, it was probably because I was a little introspective as well, that I realized that this is noise. Sometimes you can also just assume that this is your life. And then I just knew that I wanted to do masters. I just didn't want to stop my education at bachelor's. That was really the motivation that was there, and that I wanted to, be away from home. I just really wanted to explore life. It was not to be more introspective or to find myself or to understand myself. That was not the goal. Although that is what happened. That was probably underlying throughout, but the main goal was to really just move away from home, live, on my own and study. That was really the goal, and that is what got me to Europe. That's what got me to Germany.
Okay.
And I did my master's there, and I think, then that put me through a whole different challenge. And here I was. I thought it would give me a break, from everything that was going on back there in India.
No catcalling.
Yeah, exactly. No catcalling. There's literally nobody on the street.
Right.
Only the cat, the black cat that is just crossing your path. Like, hi, cat. And then that's it. Literally, there's literally nobody on the street.
Right.
So it's entirely different scenario, right? And then it put me through a different challenge.
Yeah.
I started to experience loneliness, and I actually missed home, and I missed my family, through the, for whatever reasons, and missed a close, set of friends, or having a thriving friend circle. I missed that. So, so that was what was different. And then you asked me, what is it that really made me think about all of this, sort of reflect on all of this? It was because, a lot of years, I didn't have time to think about it. I really wanted to do my master's. And I got here, and that is really what gave me that space, mentally and physically, to think about it, to think about everything that happened, and to form my own understanding of it. This started in my early 20s when I found a job here and I was working. I was living on my own. I think that was sort of the start of all of this journey. And sometime around when I was 26 or 27, I started to think that maybe it was time to have a family. But I always knew that that I have this big unaddressed thing, below shoved, below the carpet, and I had always promised myself that I would go to a therapist if I ever need to decide. When I'm at the sort of the curb of that decision, I would visit a therapist. That's something that I always told myself,
right.
Because I knew that this is not something that you can just forget about, all these incidents. And I sought therapy, and it really set me on this path of asking more questions and finding myself more, and also trying to make peace with what happened, or at least understand the cycle of thoughts that I go through. It's just the awareness of what is the trigger that sets me down on the path of self-pity. What are the other trigger points that lift me out of there? It was just this awareness gave me just so much of free space in my mind or in my brain. It was just fantastic to seek therapy. And I think that was the best decision I made in life. I was probably 28 years old. And there was also the time where I found myself that I was too stressed with my job. I was on the verge of a burnout. And my colleagues also told me that, look, I think you're heading down this path, so you might want to watch out. And I did the right thing, and I really listened to them. Because nobody had told me such a thing before. I can see that you're stressed, you're fidgety, and always looking into email. You wake up, you're looking at your office email.
Or
same
workaholic.
Same thing before going to bed. Well, my job was stressful, and there was a lot to do. I wouldn't deny that, but that doesn't mean that I should be stressed all the time. Right. It is about creating that distance between what is truly you and what is work. Right. Work defines us all to some extent.
And it should be fun.
Yeah, it should be fun. And it shouldn't define you to 100%. Yeah. So then I sought therapy. That also gave me the privilege. Of course, I'm privileged to seek therapy, to also be able to afford it. But that also gave me this space to reflect on my thoughts and understand myself more. And I think it was, around that time that I also came up with this quote, if not you, then who? That is when I really started to embrace my story and also started to tell people little by little about it. Right. And finally, there was mentoring. That is also another reason or another big milestone, I would say, that helped me understand more. Because the mentor that I found, she just it was like being grounded, finally trying to understand why am I doing so many things? Why are these thoughts in my head? I know I like talking to people, but why is it that I want to evoke some emotions in them? Why is it that when they are motivated to do something, why is it that it brings me so much joy? To understand that, to understand my what, how, and why, she really helped me a lot. So,
and were you actively seeking this
mentoring? I actually sought mentoring because I had this job and I was like, okay, what next? I need to figure it out. That is where it started, but it led back to some personal stuff. And then I realized, there is no point really separating them anymore because it's me. Whether it's work is a part of me. My personal life is a part of me. What I am as a mother now, that's a part of me. What I am as a wife or a partner, that's as part of me. So that's what I realized. And because all the incidents that I've gone through, they impact every aspect of my life. They call the butterfly effect. It's like something that has happened in your childhood it can have magnificent, but it can also have devastating effects on the rest of the things that happen in your life. Right. And that is really what kind of came shining through that mentoring experience I had. And that was amazing. And that's something I also talk about in my book, in my essay. So I think seeking, of course, trying to create that space mentally and physically, was very privileged to do that. Then seeking therapy and then seeking mentoring. I think these are the three things that really led me to, if not you, then who?
Wow. And I think also well-timed as well, because you wanted help, you were introspective, you knew that there is this whole big elephant, and if I want a bigger life, I'm an ambitious person, I want to grow up in life, I need to address all of these things. And at that time, finding the right, a therapist, maybe, I don't know what kind of therapy, speaking to a therapist.
Exactly, that's what it was.
Yeah. And also like a mentor who really appeals to your heart and mind, every single purpose, because indeed it sounds like a life coach.
I think that is what she was. She was also getting some certifications in coaching herself. And we met through this network called Professional Women's Network, and they had sort of the speed dating where the mentor and the mentee would meet, and I think we kind of hit it off.
Right.
That's how we started our journey. And the Professional Women's Network is also a common element to the book that I've written. All of the authors, we are all either past or present members of Professional Women's Network. And I think that's an amazing community that we have for women here in the Netherlands. So that was also the kind of the common theme. And I'm very happy that I found her. And although it feels like it was a long time ago now, but really, it was like tuning a musical instrument. That's really what I felt, that I was sort of in tune with my mind and with my experiences.
That's amazing to have community and to feel seen and heard, and to sort out you are like very intelligent and capable enough to like have all these like being aware, but to like arrange it in a way that will help you in future. That's like amazing. And now I know that you are also like a stand-up comedian. Like apart from tech, that's like super impressive. And like for people who don't know, she also performs in like she apart from her job in technology and being a mentor and being a coach and technology strategist and being a mom. I don't know where you have the time. We need to talk about that too, because I need help on that. You are also a stand-up comedian, which shows in, by the way, Boom Chicago. Wow, like that's like I think in Netherlands and Amsterdam the #1 place to be, and also in Utrecht Hofmann. Like, and you have a niche genre. Like of your, I would say, stand-up. Would you like to throw some light into it?
I don't know if that's a niche genre, but it's more like I like dark humor.
Yes.
So a lot of there are definitely, you will find that as one of the bigger elements in the set that I do. There are also some light-hearted jokes, things like how I make fun of food lacking in spice here, things like that. That's another one more thing that we can both agree on.
Yes,
and probably Dutch people agree with it too. But yeah, that's like common stuff like that. Just experience what I've experienced as a migrant here, and of course, a larger element is also around dark humor, where I try to make fun of, all the sort of the severe or tragic things that have happened in my life. I try to give a humorous spin to it. And one of the recent shows that I had, which also got received a lot of good feedback as well, is that, I made jokes about postpartum, all the struggle that I went through. It was particularly hard for me because I had to go through postpartum in the pandemic. There were lockdowns. I don't know how many really, because I was sort of in my own world. I just knew that I couldn't receive visitors, or I couldn't have my family flown in here to Netherlands to take care of me and my baby. So it was really a big struggle. So as it is, there is, social support lacking when you are an expat or a migrant away from home. And I felt like pandemic drove it to a whole different extent and just made literally women's lives hell. Especially women who are going through postpartum. And so I try to put a positive spin to it in one of my recent sets, and it was received quite well. So this is what I do. I try to, it comes from a place of pain, but I try to put a humorous spin to it, and that is really what most of my comedy sets are about. And I try to, of course, a large element of it is also about, showing a mirror to what the current society is like, especially with a lot of beliefs which are dictated by patriarchy and, also feminism and things like that. So that is really what I try to joke about in my sets. I don't joke about feminism, no, but joke about patriarchy. Yeah, indeed. So those are the things. So I would say it's, usually dark humor. That's what I like to focus on.
Like, what was the most interesting, I would say, audience that you had that challenged you or like made you feel like, oh, am I doing the right thing?
Oh, wow. I don't know, actually, to be honest, because so far the audience response that I've got, it really makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. I'm not saying that my jokes haven't bombed. Of course, there are times when the audience is a bit more quiet when I'm trying some new joke. And then I don't get the response that I hope to get. But I have never got a response which makes me feel like, oh, this is too difficult. I don't want to do this anymore, and things like that. So, that's a good thing, I think. Also, probably, I think the writing that goes behind it and the whole process, that's a lot of hard work. So I think it's going in the right direction. That so far I haven't seen it in the response. But even if I do see it in the response that people don't like my jokes and that they're vocal about it or they get offended and things like that, I think it wouldn't bother me because I don't fear being a failure anymore. And that is really what makes me go back to the stage again and again, especially with comedy, because when your jokes bomb, when they don't go well, you immediately see that response. And you have to think about what's the next joke that you have, or what's the next story that you want to tell your audience. And, then look at how are you going to lift their spirits, their mood, and, that they interact in a way that you expected them to do it. Right. So you really have to be present in that situation. It's like, I don't know if everybody would agree with this, but it's also like practicing mindfulness for me, like really being there, being present, interacting with your audience, and just makes you forget about everything else in the world. And that's a nice thing. So I think even if I didn't get a response that I wanted to, I don't think it would bother me a lot. Maybe at that moment I would be like, oh, what do I do now? Which joke next? But I wouldn't be afraid of it, because it has really broken my fear of failure. And that's the most wonderful thing about being on stage and trying to tell some jokes.
That's like amazing, like, because you use the stage for your mindfulness and like building this whole conscious mindset. That's like amazing. And I know that topics that you talk about are quite taboo topics, because there is religion, sex, diversity topics, a lot of patriarchy around it. And especially I know that coming from Indian culture, like where the typical image of like a good like female, Indian female is like you shouldn't use these kind of words, or that makes you subject to a lot of judgment.
Right.
Not during when you're in the stage, you're mindful and you have to be present. But before and after can also be challenging, and maybe also after, because then you have the mind space to even think that, oh my God, like people are judging. Maybe not here, but maybe you have Indian crowd. There definitely you're being judged.
Right. The thing is, I did do a couple of open mics back in India and Bangalore.
Okay.
What I felt was that the audience was uncomfortable. They went immediately quiet when I was talking about, when I was joking about sex or sexual abuse, or so those kind of topics. I could see that they immediately,
quiet.
There's exactly. So. And then of course, a lot of us comedians in India, they do jokes around sex. That's not that it's a taboo topic, but really taking it to a whole different extent.
You
and
take it to a different level.
Yeah. And then adding dark humor to it, that I think made a lot of them uncomfortable. However, I must still say that I did not get any negative feedback. And I think people are a lot more perceptive to it. Of course, I've always been brought up in a big city in India, so I might not have the full view to really answer your question to the best extent. But the audiences that I have seen and the places that I have been to, I have not experienced immediate judgment. Right. But what I do see a little bit, especially here, is that there is a tendency to, I think it's there with all of us. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it is something that would be nice if we could get over it. For example, you see a brown woman on the stage. You see, so it's also about what you assign as credibility in your mind to this person that is standing in front of you, playing with stereotypes. Your brain is immediately playing with that. They're like, this is a brown woman. She probably knows spicy food. She probably, from her accent, she's probably from India or, one of the Indian subcontinent or something like that. So that's what probably the audience is thinking. And I cannot, of course, back this with data. But what I've experienced is when I have jokes about spice or Indian food and, Dutch food, how bland it is, audience tend to laugh a lot more. For other stuff that I have to say, especially when I'm talking about, as an Indian woman, talking about patriarchy or about sex, it's not immediate that the audience grasp me as a master of the topic. Then I have to remind them Kama Sutra comes from India, and then probably they will, But it's natural. It's that stereotype that also plays in the minds of the audience that assigns certain credibility to you as soon as you stand on the stage, and also takes away some from you because stereotypes are in play.
Right. Yeah. So, when did you start stand-up comedy?
Wow, I think 4 years ago. Yeah, 3.5, 4 years ago.
So, like, is it also part of your therapy in the sense like healing process for what you mentioned about your past?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's very much so. The thing is, the more you talk about it, the more you also distance yourself from that experience that you were part of it. You know, you also start looking at it as another person who's in your mind. That when the scenes are playing, when what you experience is playing, you also start to look at it from a different perspective. Before that, you are there. Your mind is looking at it as a victim, something that happened to you. And the more you tell the story, you become a character or a role in that story, and it helps you heal. Of course, there's also another part to it where you should also not lose that essence that you know that it happened to you. It's in the sense that it shouldn't be a shameful thing that it happened to you, or you shouldn't be bogged down a lot by self-pity that it happened to you. A little bit of it is okay, because everybody experiences, like, whatever you go through, your experiences, everything is valid, especially when you go through something tragic. But then saying this story multiple times over and over again, it does help you distance yourself from it, and it helps you in healing. It has definitely helped me in healing.
Helped you.
And that's probably something that you can relate to as well, right? And I know you've been really vocal about it, and you know that you've given multiple speeches around it, and that must be quite. You probably feel like there is some burden that's lifted off of your shoulders, because you feel like you have this story which is such a taboo topic and you shouldn't tell anyone for so many years, and now you're out there on the stage. It's so like, you know,
you feel much more lighter, and then you realize that, like, for what reason was I taking this burden all my life, or like first part of my life, that it's not even a big deal. But at the same time, being completely like unemotional about it, or like, you know, I would say analytical about it, that's also something I don't want, because that pain, that injustice actually drives you. So you would never want to lose that feeling as well. Right? Do you relate to that?
I absolutely agree. There's no point in looking at it analytically or logically. No, also don't get it why looking at something from a perspective of logic is somehow greater than looking at it from an emotional standpoint of view. We've all been trained to think that being logical is better than being emotional. I think that's a narrative we need to change.
Yes,
and
definitely.
And somehow, I agree that, you know, especially with your story, when something that is so personal. You know, you don't ever want to think about it logically. It doesn't make sense. It is not your burden to think about it logically. It happened to you, and that sucks, and that should not have happened to you. That's the or me or anybody else. That's the bottom line of the story.
Right.
And it is indeed not needed to look at it analytically, and you need to it's pain, and we learn to live with it.
Yeah,
and
this like I just want to take this moment to appreciate this this whole talk that we are happening, because we spoke about data, technology, data intelligence, tech, women in career, and then we are talking about stand-up comedy, and both are so much part of your life. And can I take this moment to really, really appreciate that that you speak about both, like, because being in technology, making an impact in the tech world, bringing more and more women there, or not even women, like people from different diversities, that's quite intellectual, logical, like, you know, that part of the brain. And at the same time, you are also addressing your deepest traumas. And that's not at all logical, and that's completely emotional, and something that you live with. And you use comedy to vent out. I use speeches, poetry to like address that part. And both are so beautiful that you can live with both, right? Like, actually, not live with both, like, that's living.
Agreed. 100%.
Yeah, like, and we need more and more role models like you who who are not saying like, oh, like your career is everything, or your family is everything. No, both are important. At the same time, you yourself as a person, who you are holistically, and that's like an absolute. And that's why I wanted you in the podcast. So, like, I wanted to take this moment to just like zoom out and just really appreciate this whole situation. Like, thank you for sharing this.
Thank you. And yeah, of course, that what you said is so true. Like, you want to go after career. That's what it is. You know what it is. Do that. If that is what defines you, that's great. And if you want to go after a family life, great. If that's what you want to try to have both. That's great. Like, you just need to know what you want and why you want it. Yeah. That's more important, I think. Yeah. And then just go after it. Like whether it doesn't matter whether it's backed by data, emotions, or logic. None of them is lesser or greater than any of it. It's just they need to exist in sort of symphony. That's when you really are yourself, and that's the best.
Beautiful, yeah, I love that about the symphony analogy. And the thing is that we also make choices like as like individuals based on the social stereotypes, right? Because most females go into like family. Now things are changing, and with more and more role models, we are seeing that like, okay, things are changing and the stereotype is changing, and hence the choice is also changing, which makes our what we have to choose in the table much more wider, but also it makes it more challenging, right? Now we want it all as a female. We want family, we want a relationship who's equal, who treats us like equal, or like at least have better standards than what the past relationships were for females. Have a kid, have a career, be very ambitious in the career. Can you manage it all?
If it's a question to me, I'm figuring it out. Yeah. I think if I have to answer it in a yes or no, I would say yes. It's possible. I'm learning. I'm trying to get there. But if you ask me now, I think it's possible to have it all. And if it's okay if you don't want to have it all, like I said, just be sure of who you are as a person, so you can go after what are the things that you want. And indeed, I agree with you. The choices we have now on the table can also be challenging, which probably women of previous generations did not experience, or at least, probably only a small part of them experienced it. And it is a challenge, I agree. And I think we can have it all. And if that's what we want, we should go after it.
Yeah. And hence the role how the society plays, your cheerleaders play, your partner plays, they become more and more significant because we are living this whole symbiotic life. Right. The more we want from life, the more we need to share our burdens. And so how's the chemistry in your household chores and with like maintaining your kid with your partner?
It is challenging because it is we don't have family support here. That right, definitely it makes things a lot more difficult for us, especially on days, let's say, when our son is sick and he passes it on to us. We are all sick. We're like, okay, who's going to take care of us now? That's when it gets really difficult. And I think it's important that employers also think about that. I know Netherlands has good policies in terms of long-term caregiving leave and so on for parents. I think that's amazing. But what do you do when it's really just a 1 or 2 day sickness? I don't want to use my vacation days for it, because that's really for me to focus on myself, Right. I do end up using it, but, I think it's also something that, when you have expats here or migrant workers here, it's also good, something that I think should change across employers to think about it. And then if I really focus back on my family, on what is challenging and how we manage, we somehow manage. Yeah. And I think we are happy with our choices. I think that's the best thing, because we made this decision to kind of build our family on our own terms, to go the family way. And I think that's very important. And we are happy with our choice, and we make it work. It's not easy, but we make it work. And of course, it's also important for me as a woman who is really ambitious with her career, and also has a lot of hobbies and likes to meet people and to be out. It can make it hard sometimes,
Right.
but somehow we manage, because we kind of try to sync our agendas and see who's taking care, of our son when the other person is busy. And I think it's also, that needs to happen too, that we make time for the other parent to take care of themselves, to give them some time. And I think that's very important. And in my family, I'm the biggest reminder for that. I keep saying, no, I need to take this time for yourself. You need to take this time for yourself. That's the conversation that I keep having nowadays with my partner, so we can prioritize self-care, because that is very important. Otherwise, we cannot be good parents. It's just not possible, especially when you have a lot of things going on and not enough support, I would say. It's
very important.
It's very important to prioritize self-care. So that's how we manage. We prioritize self-care, and we have our agendas. Thanks to the Dutch culture, we are now almost as good as Dutch people here, managing their calendars and trying to put everything on a shared calendar. Which are you away? This are I'm away, and things like that.
Wow.
And then of course we are. I think we are equal partners, or maybe equal is just, I wouldn't say 50%, but sometimes one parent is leading, the other one is in the back seat, and the other way around. It depends. And there are some chores which you're comfortable doing, you do that. Some of the other chores, the other partner does it. But it's important also. Sometimes, like the stereotype that comes into play, that a woman is good at this job, or man is good at this job. Sometimes that can help too. But it's okay. You don't have to I don't want to bring all the stuff from IKEA and start building it myself, just because, I think that women can do it too. Of course they can do it. I just don't want to do it sometimes, And then I take up something else. So that's how it is. That's also a kind of symphony that needs to, there are different elements that need to play together to have a healthy family.
Right.
And some days, most days we get it right. Some days we fail, and then the next day it's another day, and we try to make it better.
What I really like about these statements that you made is that how confident and how much self-respect you have for yourself. Let me reflect on that. That you know that to be a good parent, you can't get into that guilt mode that, hey, I'm ambitious, or hey, I want career, hey, I want, the point that you came here and, doing this podcast, you didn't even think twice. And you take yourself that seriously in all aspects, as much as you take yourself as a mother. And that says a lot about how holistic person you are, and that makes you a better mother. Because I think that's a great message for the audiences, and also to see a role model that to have a well-accomplished life, or to be ambitious in your career, you don't need to be a bad mom. This is also great parenting. This is if your ambition is to be a full-time mom, be it. If your ambition is to be, ambitions as work also, please know that that's not bad parenting. You just need to have a great support system, and kudos to your partner for supporting you. We have to mention our men in our lives, who make our lives,
Right.
And help us dream bigger.
Right, and they definitely play their male energies to their strength, and also probably female energies to their strength. And I think that's important as well, that they have. And I think it's important that everybody acknowledges. That's also, by the way, something that we talk about in the book, that there are certain energies and strengths that we bring in, like female energy, male
Masculine,
energy, or
feminine
strengths. And that is assigned stereotypically to each, to the two genders that we've always been talking about. There are more, but there, let's say the extremes of it. And that's what the book also talks about. How can you play it to your advantage? How can you play it to your strength? And I think that's what the men in our lives do as well. I think it's important that that they also acknowledge their predominantly female strengths or energy that they might have, which could be things like empathizing or kindness, and emotionally looking at certain things from an emotional point of view, and not shying away from it. I think that's important for men, and I think it's important even more when you're trying to when you're a man in the family, and not a man of the family, you're a man in the family, and I think it's important that you acknowledge those energies that you have and play to the strengths.
Definitely, like to, like just like we are healing, it's like everybody's healing, like people around us, and like you were mentioning about patriarchy, and I think so many men are healing from patriarchy as well, just like us, and we need to celebrate these men who show so much of emotional intelligence and dare to be vulnerable. In fact, I'm getting emotional somehow talking about this topic. It's incredibly sexy, man. If you are, strong and at the same time vulnerable. And I think that's the new definition of strength, that you can be both. You can be physically strong, mentally strong, at the same time vulnerable, show your weakness, share your feeling with your partners and family around, show your love, and support others, empower others. That's incredibly attractive.
It is, and it's what is needed to build a better world and more mentally peaceful world for our children.
Yeah, like how we can also, like, in many ways, you being ambitious is also your sharing, like, the share in the family, like just not the breadwinning side, but also the mental. Earlier, I guess, like, it was like very stereotyped that like the man in the family, the breadwinner, is also the mental caregiver, in the sense that should not like get like emotional weak, otherwise it's weakness or something like that. Now, since we are out there in the workforce, and just like you, I also work in a very male dominated society in tech. I can see, and I think that we develop that intelligence as well, that you have to be mentally strong to go out there and make things happen and deliver and meet the deadlines and go for something. And that intelligence also is like coming in females now, that made males earlier so strong. We also have it, so it's like balancing out, and we need more and more balanced like couples, like family, like, and that's like amazing. Like that makes like the future so much more positive, and I think I have a great role model in front of me.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it doesn't matter what your sex or your gender is. It's really to understand where these trends come from. I mean, I guess it would be the same for the same-sex parents as well, just to be in a sort of symphony on, just trying to divide chores, and it's just, you're a team. I don't think, your gender and your sex should play a role in it, and that's what we try to do to our best. It does play sometimes, I wouldn't deny that, but we just try to, do our best, unlearning also sometimes, and also learning through our child, and trying to manage things. And most days we succeed, but there are days when we don't, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. And like also healing each other, I think, in our each other's journeys. Like I feel like it's a lifelong process, right? Like you never get to a particular point and say that like, oh, now I'm the happiest person in the world. Like that would be very boring as well. Like so like it's such a great inspiration to really see that. Maybe on a final note, anything that you would like to mention, like a message, anything particular that you feel like, apart from like the amazing topics that we spoke about, like that you feel like that we missed out, or like something that is appealing?
Well, I think it was a great conversation, Sudhanya, and your knowledge about emotional intelligence and your empathy shines through all of this. And I think I said most of the things what I wanted to say. And we talked about tech, we talked about stand-up comedy, we talked about trying to manage a family, and I think all those things are close to my heart, and I try to do the best of my abilities in all those fields, and also try to enjoy it. And that they don't need to be like goals or ambitions where I need to be at all the time. They can also be something that I can just be there present and try to enjoy. And so that's it. That was great for me. And of course, I'll not miss this opportunity to, kind of show our book to the audience. Here it is, Ready for Female Leadership. The Future is Now. I think it's a wonderful collection of essays. And of course, I have co-authored it too. And if you're looking at, certain topics that can inspire you to either take up mentoring or become a mentee, I think this is a book that you should definitely read. It also has some elements like technical leadership or technology leadership and emotional intelligence and so on. So I think it's a great book, and I think there are many authors with different backgrounds and different experiences that have poured their hearts into this book. And I think it's a great thing. And also, all the profits after costs, they go towards a non-profit organization which works towards developing women in different economies and different countries. So I think it's a great book, and I will not miss this opportunity to plug in that book. Go order it, and it's available on Amazon. And please read and share your feedback.
Definitely, I'll share the link on how you can buy this, but like I have read your essay, but I'm looking forward to read the rest as well. But indeed, the whole concept, I really loved that there are so many elements about leadership, and especially the feminine style. And there are not only female co-authors, but there are male co-authors as well. So which actually I love it because it's not an exclusive community that we are building.
Yeah.
We are building
We need
an
allies.
inclusive.
Yeah, we need allies.
Yeah. So it's amazing. I think you are doing an amazing job. Last and not the least, we are also part of the same public speaking club. I totally forgot to mention that.
Yes,
we're talking
masters. Yes, of course.
Yeah,
that's really what brought us together.
Yeah, that's how I met her in the first place. So, but then I learned so many beautiful things about you that I totally forgot to mention this thing totally. But thank you so much that you're doing such amazing job and being this. This also gives me, by the way, a personal inspiration because I also love to do tech and I don't want to get rid of tech ever. I enjoy it. I'm passionate about my corporate life. But at the same time, I do poetry. I give workshops on emotional intelligence, which people ask, these are so opposite. You have to choose one. But people like you inspire me. Hell no, I want it all.
Good.
Yeah. So thank you for serving a role model for me, and coming to this podcast where I think very, very courageous of you to share so many personal bites. I know how many ever times you do it on the stage, especially when it is in person and having a one-on-one conversation. It's even a bit more tougher sometimes, I feel. So I want to really thank you, Archana, for doing that. And on a final note, this is really final. I have a list of questions, which I call the real questions. Although we had a real talk, so there are a list of I will ask you around 10. It is a one-liner or a question. So the only thing that you need to do is give me a one-liner answer, and I'm not going to counter to that. Oof. So that's a bit tricky, but this is a set of questions that actually ask to all my guests. And what's interesting, there is no right or wrong, but the variety, the diversity that makes it very interesting for all of us to hear the opinions about. And I'm looking forward to yours, Archana. Are you ready?
Yeah, I think I am. Let's get started.
Let's get started. So, Here are your one-liners. Casual sex or committed sex?
It's just sex.
Porn is healthy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
If you're in your limits, yeah.
White men rule.
Yeah, but everybody rules.
Yeah,
Should rule.
should. Right now?
White men rule. Right now, they do. But it should change.
Emotions are weakness.
No.
Mm-hmm.
That really just like one word's enough. There's no one-liner. No, a hard no, bold type. No.
So, body positivity or body neutrality?
Wow. Body positivity is needed for now because ideally we shouldn't move towards body neutrality, but I think we need to focus on body positivity as a way to get there because there are a lot of negative stuff going around. So body positivity now, the goal should be body neutrality.
Slavery is over.
No, it's not all over. You, probably a lot of us are still enslaved to our memories, to our experiences. No.
Amazing. Love that. Asians are nerds.
Is being nerd a bad thing?
I don't think
That's
so.
my answer to it.
That's amazing. I love that. Mothers are undervalued.
I'm thinking of a one-liner for it. I mean, I'm immediately inclined to say yes, they are. I think it's so hard to do this one line. I would say women are undervalued.
Yeah. Wow. Love that. Last one. Parents fuck up their kids no matter what.
Yes, but I think the goal should be that when your child is in therapy, you're not the main reason for it.
I love that. So, like, again, the fun fact is that everybody says yes to this. So no matter what, kids are going to get fucked up. We are fucked ups. And so, like, let's enjoy that. There is no big deal. Like, have therapy, have fun. And, don't take life so, like, heavily at the same time. Like, watch Archana's stand-up comedy. It really helps, by the way. Yeah. Thank you so much, girl. It was super fun talking to you. I had a lot of fun doing the Real Talk session with you. And I would like to give you a hug now, if you are okay.
Yes. Thank you, Sudhanya, for all the amazing questions and your kind words.
Okay, let's do a hug.